Hey, what's going on, everyone? You're listening to WSOU. I am Nick. I'm here with Jon Dette, the drummer for Meshiaak. What's going on, man?
Hey, I'm doing good. It's and just to clarify, it's Jon Dette.
Oh, is it? See, that
I
was.
know a lot of people will get that mixed up
Have you ever
sometimes.
seen? Oh, well, you probably have seen it, the that metal show where that was the question,
Oh yeah,
and
oh
that was
yeah.
the big debate, and that's how I've always gone off of that, was no one could figure out the right way to say it. So there you go, getting it from the main source itself.
Yeah, you think Eddie would have it, get it right eventually? I know that my
Yeah,
name came
right.
up a couple of times on that show, and
He
I'm
knows
like,
everything else.
do I start calling him Edie now, or is it Eddie?
That's funny.
So
All right. Well,
yeah,
thank you
but
for that.
yeah, no problem, man, no
All
problem.
right, perfect. But you guys just put out like a week or two ago your new album, Alliance of Thieves, which is your first album off of this project. Now, tell me a little bit about putting this band together, because from what I saw is a couple of the guys are from Melbourne, Australia.
Correct.
So how did you
Yep.
guys all get in touch to move forward with this project?
Yeah, so this all started back in 2013 when I was I was going down to Australia with Slayer and Anthrax
Right.
to perform at the Soundwave festival tour that was going on down there. So the publicist that was assigned to me was a gentleman by the name of Chris Merrick, who's also very good friends with Danny Camilleri, and so. I stayed in touch with Chris after the Soundwave tour, and he contacted me about 6 months later, and said, "Hey, I've got a friend of mine, Danny, used to play in a band called Forearm down here, and he's starting a new band, and I think you'd be perfect for this." And he loved watching you perform with Slayer and Anthrax, and you should really check it out. And I was a little reluctant at first because obviously he's in Australia,
Right.
and it's
Exactly.
not like you just get in the car and be right over. I mean, I'm in San Diego, California, so a little bit of a logistical challenge there. But ultimately, Danny and I got on the phone, and he had sent me a couple of rough demos, and I heard the demos, and particularly there was a song. Actually, it's the title track to the album, Alliance of Thieves. That was the first song that I actually heard. And at the end of the song, Danny was actually using a singing voice, and that's what really perked my attention,
Right.
and because in my mind I was going, wow, this could go from a good metal band to something so much more, and so I received a few more demos, and I was like, this sounds awesome. This is something I definitely want to be a part of, and we'll figure the logistical stuff out later.
Right.
But
Exactly.
so yeah, and the interesting thing too is that I just signed on to do the record. I didn't commit to this really wasn't a band, so to
Okay.
speak, at the beginning. It was evolving to that, and I know that Danny and Dean wanted it to be that. But I'm not going to just join a band with a bunch of guys I don't know. I've never
Exactly.
met. I've never hung out with them,
Right.
and they're 7,000 miles from me. So, but once they all flew out to California when we ultimately started tracking the drums, and I'm so glad that they did that, because I like to tell everybody, we started this whole thing off, this journey to make a record, and we went in the studio to make a record, and we came out of the studio as a complete band. And it is a band. It's not a project.
Okay.
Four full members. It's not my band. I'm just one of the members, and
Right.
so it's we're just four guys that really enjoy making the same kind of music, and and we also like having a beer as well.
Yeah, right, exactly. So that's interesting. So the recording process itself was almost like the first time the band really got to like bond as a whole and kind of, I guess,
Abs-
flush itself out.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And we had about a week and a half of pre-production prior to that. So we recorded we tracked the drums at a studio called Jingletown, which is in Oakland, California. It's owned by the band Green Day,
Oh, okay.
and really nice studio. And Machine Head's done a few of their records there, and we wanted to record the drums on 2-inch tape.
Oh,
and
okay.
actually the entire album on 2-inch tape. But we, you know, drums were first on deck, and so they really wanted to come to California because they really enjoyed the vibe of a lot of the thrash bands that are from California. So
Exactly.
we've got quite a few out here, and
For sure, yeah.
so they really wanted to capture that vibe and energy, and and Oakland was cool for me because it brought me back to my Testament days when I was
Right.
the studio was right down the street from where I used to rehearse with Testament, and we actually wound up doing pre-production at a rehearsal place where Testament
Okay.
rehearsed at. So it was it's kind of like a bittersweet
Yeah.
moment for me working on this. Um, but yeah, it was great for them to come out and really work on the songs. And as you said, we ultimately got to bond as people. And after the first night of being with each other, I mean, we just having some beers and making music together, we immediately felt like four long lost brothers.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
which is important. I mean, if you're going to start a band and especially be part of a band as a full member of a band, you know, the, that is, in my mind, as equally as important as creating great music together and being having four visions of the type of music that you want to play as well.
Yeah, because that was what I was gonna say is I listened to the album, a couple times about maybe a week ago, and I was very surprised with now that you just say that you guys bonded while recording it, like, there wasn't really too much beforehand. Listening to the album all the way through and knowing that on top of it makes it almost even more incredible because the album really is very well put together, very well recorded, the parts all fit well, like, it doesn't seem like it was like, "Oh, okay, we kinda ran out of ideas, so let's just throw this kinda stuff." Like, it was very meticulous and everything flowed well, so hearing the way it was made definitely adds a lot of credibility to the album itself, and I'm sure you have gotten, how's the reception been for you so far? Have you seen a lot of good things?
It's been far beyond what I expected.
That's good,
I
yeah.
expected people to like it, but you know, people are. Uh, I mean, people are going beyond that. They're saying this is the best record of 2016 for me. And
Right.
I was in South America with Anthrax earlier this year, out on their tour with supporting Iron Maiden, and I was we were in the dressing room, and Scott Ian actually just he mentioned that he spoke to Mike at Aardschok, which Mike is the owner of Aardschok magazine, which is in the Netherlands, and he goes, I spoke to Mike this morning, and he heard your record, and he thinks it's the best album of 2016.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, and that was the first time I'd actually heard anybody say that. And and I've heard it a lot since then, which is just what an honor and a privilege, not just for me, but also for Dean and Danny as well, because they're the guys that really put the heavy lifting in on this.
For sure,
Because
yeah.
a lot of the songs were, they were rough ideas, but the songs were really at a strong point, arrangement wise, before I came on board and started, putting my 2 cents to it, so to
Right.
speak. But yeah, I couldn't be happier with the reaction that people are having right now.
And I'm sure the reception and everything adds a lot more merit to the band and the credibility aspect. Like, I'm sure that now the way you see the band may be a little bit different now because of how people have seen it. Like, I don't know what your expectations were going in on, how, oh, like, this might be something that, goes over well. Maybe the second or third album will pick up, but like, how has it been, the first one right out of the gate?
Yeah. No, again, it's great. I mean, and it's funny because the guys are already writing material for the second record.
Okay.
And Dean has actually he just sent me a new song idea 2 nights ago.
Okay.
And so I mean, they're in creative mode right now. So why not? I mean, it'll be great to have 20 or 25 ideas going into the next record. I mean, we haven't even got this record has only been out for not even 2 weeks now,
Right.
and
Exactly.
we haven't even gotten on the road to go out and tour and support this yet. So which is our next phase.
Okay.
But yeah, again, I think that these guys have just they've written the songs and arranged songs that what's going on with them in their lives vocally. Danny with his lyrics, and I think the other thing that really adds to the overall quality and uniqueness of the album is Dean's input. For the fact that Dean is not a thrash metal guitar player.
Okay.
He's a fan of thrash, but specifically he's a fan of Metallica and Slayer and Anthrax. He's not, but he's a progressive player. He's a progressive rock guy. He's into guys like Steve Vai and Joe Satriani and Dream Theater, bands like that. That's really about as heavy as Dean has played historically. So to bring somebody like that into onto this side of the street, so to speak, that's how you're getting that added uniqueness and
that extra
quality.
dynamic,
right, because and also Dean is a producer back in Australia, so he works with a lot of bands back in Australia and TV stations and things like that. So not only is he coming into this with guitar ears, but he's also coming into it with producer ears as well.
Right.
And and in particular, he really should get a lot of credit for working with Danny on the singing vocals, because prior to Meshiaak, Danny, who is an amazing guitar player and I love Danny's heavy voice. He's got this great heavy voice and great on stage, but he's never really sang before, and so this was a new challenge for him.
Right.
And Dean really, as a producer, helped him to pull what he was writing lyrically out and in a way to where he could sing it and give him that confidence as well. And the result is amazing because Danny has an incredible voice. I mean, as I said, that's what sold me originally on the band, was hearing Danny's voice.
Oh, wow.
And because like I said, the music is great. These awesome riffs, and the solos are very memorable. And you've got Danny's screaming voice, which is awesome. But man, when he sings and goes into a singing part, wow! It really, and for me personally, it just goes somewhere far greater than just in a thrash metal box, so to speak.
Right, because that was something when I listened to it, I was like, wow, because I was expecting to hear like a thrash album, thinking of your past bands that you've worked with. And then hearing, the very big, vocals and everything, I was very surprised, and I thought it worked very well. And I thought, it definitely separates you a little bit from just, the thrash genre itself, which is, always good to be, doing something a little bit different.
Well, this could go back to any time period. If you're going to be a band trying to do if you're trying to kind of step out and from the masses, so to speak, you've got to try something different.
Oh, exactly.
Whether it succeeds or fails, you've got to try, because if you play it safe and just try and do, I'm just going to try and sound like this and sound like that, you've already pigeonholed yourself into one little genre or aspect, so to speak, and two, there's going to be nothing that you're really bringing to the table for your listeners, because if you're sounding like somebody else, it's like, well, yeah, you sound like this person, and I'll just go see them.
Right.
So, and it's fun. It's fun to make music that maybe people haven't tried doing before. And blend things in a certain way. And I think that's what was so, why we enjoyed making this record so much, is that it has all these added qualities to it that are blended in a way that I personally think works, amazingly.
For sure.
And so yeah, we're trying something, I guess, a little different, and but at the end of the day, it's just making music that we ultimately enjoy playing and making, and and soon to perform live.
Right, awesome. And that's what I was about to ask you. So what is the touring situation looking like? Has there been anything in the works? Like, are you going to try to do like small headliners, or try to get, opening on bigger tours? Like, what's the idea?
Yeah, so I've been on the phone with my manager for like just this past week now, and so we're definitely looking to jump onto obviously a larger band as part of
Right.
the tour package.
Okay.
And so there's a couple offers that we have right now, and I can't say who and blah blah blah, but that's been our focus right now. As the record's out, we've got a music video coming out next week.
Okay.
That'll be essentially the first real single for the record. It's the song called "At the Edge of the World,"
All right.
and so we're getting that out, and that'll start circulating on social media and on the web and things like that. And then you can expect to either see Meshiaak out on the road, if not by the end of this year, then the early part of 2017.
Okay.
And that'll be hitting all four corners of the earth. So
Perfect.
yeah, it's so again, we're really looking forward to getting out there and playing live.
Right. And then now that you just mentioned the band name again, what exactly is the meaning behind that? Because it's something I've never heard the term before. I didn't know if it was something just made up or if it has.
Yeah. So Meshiaak is Messiah.
Okay.
That's how you say Messiah in Hebrew.
Oh, okay.
And so adds a little bit of a uniqueness to it. And, it's interesting because the first time that Danny came up with that name, and he said the name of the band, and of course I say what everybody else says. What? And he repeats the name again, and then of course I'm pronouncing it incorrectly for the first couple of weeks, and I have to ask him, how do you pronounce this? And Meshiaak, just think of a female she in there,
Right.
Oh, okay, I got it, Meshiaak. And but it's one of those names that after you start saying it over and the name and the band slowly starts to get branded,
Right.
I think it just adds to the overall uniqueness of the band.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Because it's one of those names that you won't forget, and you won't say, "Oh, gee, it sounds like this" or "It sounds like that." So,
Right.
So yeah, I'm happy with the name.
And then also going off of, we were mentioning the touring aspect. Now, since you said this is like your band, well, not your band, but like this is a real band. This isn't a project. It's going to be toured. And time is going to be put into this. Is that going to take you off of, because I've always considered you like one of the main sub drummers for the metal scene. Like, you've done the Anthrax and Slayer. You're the guy to call when someone needs someone. So is that going to kind of put you on hold for doing that for a little while, I'm guessing?
Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, it depends on what's being offered at the time,
Right.
But, I mean, at the end of the day, Meshiaak is going to be my full priority.
Okay.
So, it's, unless some rare situation comes up and, Lars Ulrich breaks a pinky or something like that, and I'd have to do that just because
Just
Metallica,
to do it, yeah.
like
you can't pass that up.
Yeah, how could I even answer that, jokingly or otherwise? No, but yeah, I've been subbing now with Anthrax. God, it's been almost 4 years now, since 2012. So. I'm continuing to fill in for Charlie,
Right.
For shows that he can't do, and that'll continue throughout this year and into next year. But yeah, obviously, if it gets to a point where there's going to be a Meshiaak opportunity for a tour that's going to conflict with an Anthrax tour, well, we'll have to discuss that at that time.
Right.
But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. It's certainly nothing that's going to happen anytime soon. And since our manager is the same manager that manages Anthrax, it kind of helps things a little bit more too, to schedule wise.
Right.
Because you try to put everything under one roof, so to speak, and then makes it easier for them to set things up logistically and tours and things like that. So
Right.
Certainly Anthrax has their schedule, and their schedule is not going to be altered in any way for Meshiaak by any means. But but if like I said, we'll just have to cross that bridge when we get to it.
Right. Or you can always, now, like you mentioned, you're on the same management. You can open for Anthrax. You could pull double duty.
Well, gee, that's never been discussed at all.
I'm sure it has been numerous times.
Yeah, well, like I said, after 2013, it was, it actually, it because I had questions of whether or not I could do double duty.
Right.
I mean, playing drums for a band like Anthrax and Slayer back
Oh
to back,
yeah.
it's, I was wondering if I was going to have it in me to do it, and surprisingly I did. So, yeah, I mean, doing double duty, as long as it works. Again, there's other things that you got to work out business wise and logistically and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I could definitely do a Meshiaak set and then do an Anthrax set without it causing any fatigue problems or anything like that for me. That would be something I could absolutely do.
That would be awesome to see something like that happen.
Oh yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah. And now I just wanted to mention briefly too, since you mentioned Slayer, you kind of it was an interesting topic because you came back again, after Lombardo left last to fill in on those shows that they were playing, which was also the whole time around the Hanneman thing. Now, what was that like jumping into that? I'm sure because Slayer's one of those bands that the fans are very adamant about the way the band is, and those fans are really into it. Now, how was that just jumping back in?
Yeah, well, first of all, it was a complete, like last minute thing.
Yeah.
I was going down to Australia with Anthrax, for the Soundwave Festival. So
Right.
I was already, my visas were already in, everything was set for me as far as Australia goes. And then, whatever was going on between the Slayer guys, I'll let those guys answer that because I try not to get in the middle.
Right. Yeah.
Of
No.
that
Exactly.
stuff. But I got a call from Kerry about a week before flying out,
Oh wow.
and it was ironic because Anthrax was actually supposed to leave about a week early to head over towards Australia. We were actually going to do a couple of shows in India, of
Oh
all
wow.
places, and then fly from India to Australia. But something happened, and the shows in India got canceled, and so we had to redo our plane flights to fly out a week later. Well, it worked out for the best because the night I was supposed to fly to India, that's the night that Kerry called me
Okay.
and said, hey, this is what's going on. Do you think that you could do this?
Yeah.
Because we're going to, and first of all, I mean, we had to look at like, okay, well, Soundwave, some of these festivals like Wacken and these other festivals, I don't know if you've ever seen these things, but there's usually about 5 or 6 stages.
Yeah. They're massive.
And they're massive events. And so, it's not just a question of can I do it, but where's Anthrax playing on what stage and where's Slayer playing on what stage and at what time? Because if Anthrax is on at 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock and Slayer's on at 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock on another stage, it's just physically how do you get me over there?
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
and how do I jump literally right off stage and jump on another? So, but I think the festival, accommodated once we knew that I was going to do this. I think the festival accommodated set times.
Okay.
And I had about an hour in between between sets. So Anthrax went on at a certain time, and then I had about an hour rest, and then Slayer went on in wherever they were placing the set.
Right.
But the crazy thing about it is that I only had 3 days to rehearse with Kerry.
Okay.
I didn't even rehearse with the entire band. It was
wow.
It was just with Kerry, and the savior in all of it was the fact that obviously I was in the band back in
Right.
95,
Yeah.
96, 97, and I would say 95% of the songs that were being played, the set list for Soundwave were songs that I had played with the band back in the 90s.
Wow. Okay.
So it was really like riding a bike, getting into a room and hashing it out. And I was in tour shape because I was ready to, I was prepared with Anthrax.
Yeah.
So, but, it was, if anybody's watching videos of any of the performances from, Australia, it's, even I'll sometimes peek at stuff like that and go, man, I can't believe we pulled that off the way we did with only 3 rehearsals,
Yeah.
you know? And in particular, I mean, if you're watching any of the Brisbane footage, you know, that's the, you know, we didn't have a sound check and we didn't rehearse backstage or anything. And that was the first time Tom and I were on stage in 17 years,
Wow.
you know, and it was like, it just felt like we didn't even skip a beat.
Yeah.
And so I think for, you know, there were so many reasons why it should have gone wrong. And you know, but at the end of the day, when we did it, it was just, it all went right, you know. And as far as the fans go, yeah, you're never going to please the fans that, you know, I mean, they're just going to be, you know, Lombardo or die.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And as a Slayer fan first, I get that, you know.
Right.
I mean, Dave is an integral part of the band. He has been an integral part of the band. And I was very vocal about that in my interviews back then, saying, you know, God, I hope they work this out because, you know, it'd be really unfortunate if this, you know, if they parted ways again.
Right.
You know, I was the first guy saying, you know, hey, yeah, you know, Dave should be back in the band, but under the right circumstances.
Exactly.
Again, just my opinion.
Right.
So, but yeah, you know, you're going to hear flack and, you know, oh, I drop a drumstick and somebody's going to go, ooh, he messed up. It's like, yeah, that's right. I did. Yeah, so what?
Right.
So I drop a stick, I pick up another one. It happens.
Exactly.
You know, I'm not a robot.
Exactly.
I'm a guy that got to play Slayer songs for 3 days and then get on stage and do this. So,
yeah, like that's incredible.
Yeah, but no, I think the result was amazing down there, considering, and you know, it was overall it felt really great, and it was a great experience.
That's awesome. And then just one more thing I wanted to mention, that something I noticed a while ago and was just always intrigued by and wanted to know if there was like some kind of like history along with it, was that all 3 of like the main drummers that I've ever played with Slayer, you, Lombardo, and Bosstaff, have all also played with Testament. So I didn't know, was there like a very close tie between the camps? Because I always thought that was interesting that all 3 of them had a part of both bands.
Yeah, you know, the thing is with the thrash metal community, and in particular like the big 4 bands, and you know, and Testament and Exodus and bands like that, it's really like one big family. Everybody knows everybody. You know, a lot of those guys, they talk to each other probably, you know, maybe daily, and you know, or maybe once a week or once a month or whatever it is. But it's a very close knit family, and or you could call it even an extended family.
Right.
So obviously, you know, yeah, I mean, when Dave worked with Testament back in the day, I mean, obviously he has a history of Testament, played on the, you know, a lot of tours with Slayer back in the day. They all know each other.
Right.
So, you know, if Dave is available, it's easy for Testament to call up Dave and say, hey, are you busy? Can you do it? Would you be interested in doing the next record? Blah, blah, blah. And it's really just kind of how that all works. And
Right.
Not to mention, there's a comfortability with the fact that everybody knows everybody, and there's kind of that guarantee that you know what you're going to get if this person performs on your record, and,
Right.
and there's a guarantee you know what you're going to get if this person goes on tour with you, as opposed to an unknown outsider where it's, you know, it's a wild card. You know, it could work out great, it might not work out so great.
Yeah, very true.
So, you know, but at the end of the day, it's like I said, it's a close-knit family. Everybody knows everybody. So I think that just as drummers have been available for either band, that's just how that works out.
Right. I just always thought that was really interesting, but that's really cool. Is there anything you want to say wrapping up?
Well, just, you know, I hope that everybody enjoys the new record, you know, the Alliance of Thieves, which is out now, brand new album from Meshiaak. And, you know, you can look forward to seeing the band somewhere in a city near you either by the end of this year or early next year. And new single, At the Edge of the World, music video will be out next week.
Awesome. Perfect.
Yep.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right, man. Thanks.